Welcome back to the Transform Talent podcast, brought to you by Talent Solutions. I'm your host, Georgina Huntley. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing all things data and how you in leadership can harness actionable insights to build success during the skills evolution. To help us get there, I'm joined by Anna Spaul, Director of Intelligence and Research at ManpowerGroup. Anna leads on strategy and delivery of insights across our UK clients and business. And as part of this, she's introduced a new intelligence-led strategy that I'm really excited to learn more about. Let's dive in. Great to have you with us, Anna. Let's start off a little bit by you telling us about your career journey so far.
Yeah, of course. An unconventional way to recruitment, really. I never imagined myself in the recruitment industry or the industry, anything aligned to this. I started out in kind of psychology, clinical research, looking at genetic links to mental health. And then I undertook a master's degree in psychiatry. And alongside that, I continuously worked in sales environments, retails and shops. And that's, I think, where a lot of my soft skills came from, actually, alongside the kind of academic route. Taking those skills, I went into digital marketing, looking at analytics. How do we drive, organic and paid for attraction to campaigns, and look at, non-profit science publishing, those kind of environments. And then from there, I ended up somehow in this organisation looking at market intelligence. So applying the analytics, applying the skills that I had built from different industries into a new lens, looking at research in a small scale in the organisation. And then quickly it built up traction, and actually the value has kind of shown in different clients. And then now I'm in the position, fortunately, to be able to looking after our UK function, which is really an honour.
And what do you and your team offer to the organisation?
Yes, it's a good question because, in the recruitment industry, you're looking at insights teams and you're wondering, where does that fit in? Mm-hmm. For us, really, the value is in what can we give to clients that they don't see coming? What are the insights and intelligence that they aren't able to provide themselves? And how can we embed that into every part of the process? So we know already that there are talent shortages. We know that organisations are struggling to find the talent they need for today and tomorrow. The only answer to that is in data and intelligence, and actually uncovering patterns and trends enables us to see into the future a little bit and actually help organisations prepare for the new world of work. In a more day-to-day sense, we provide tactical reports for recruiters, understanding the market before going into briefing calls. We look at strategic reports where we work with clients on skills mapping, and also any kind of deliverable that looks at data and intelligence falls into my world. So really it's going beyond reporting into how do we use this and action it to create something that we can really tangibly create a benefit for.
And we're in quite a unique position with the function of what we do, because we not only have the sight of all the intelligence of that one client, but we can also look at trends and differences across a whole breadth of clients in the organisation. So we've got really quite a unique offering there.
Exactly right. And the power is always in multiple dimensions. So when you're looking for an answer to a problem, quite often we go to one source and we see, this is the output, this is what the answer should be. But actually, because we have that view of candidate experience, what's motivating candidates in the market today, what's your employer brand positioning like, and also what are the recruitment trends that are impacting your ability to recruit, we can really create a holistic picture that gives a solution that's looking at all the factors in review.
Proving really valuable to our clients, I'm sure. Can we talk about, before we go into the depths of it for our listeners, can we talk about what intelligence-led really means when we think about strategy and insights, and why is the traditional way no longer the way that it should work?
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally we have in this industry, and I say we, short term because I haven't been in the industry long, but traditionally the industry has been led by feelings and emotive decision making. So I feel that this is an issue and this is my solution. Really typically we see kind of challenges in recruitment, and that's matched with, let's raise the salaries, or something that's really short term, doesn't resolve a long term solution. So what intelligence does is move from data led decision making. So we know over the past decade, maybe more, that organisations have been striving to become data-led, reporting on everything, looking at every inch of what they do and analysing it and then reporting on it. But the next step for that, the next iteration that our organisation is taking on, is intelligence-led. So the difference there is really actioning future-proofing and making sure that you're not just nowcasting. So ensuring that you look to the future, you can predict, you can use machine learning algorithms to spot trends, you can really leverage the best of your capabilities to teach clients what's going on next.
So these key benefits are really about the future-proofing or the future aspect of what it is that we're doing.
Absolutely. We're no longer looking at recruitment to fill a job. We're looking at recruitment, retraining and reskilling. We need the entire workforce to be ready for the challenges that we all face tomorrow. No one business is equipped to battle that. We need to really come together and create pipelines, look at strategies that overcome these challenges long term. We know that there is a missing million in our workforce, and we know that challenge is something that everybody here will face. So how can we come together to achieve that and overcome that is really in the workforce intelligence.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anna. So we've talked about the benefits to this approach, but I wonder if there are some key stats that you can bring to life for our listeners.
Absolutely. So really, when you're looking at intelligence-led strategies, the biggest selling point for our customers is the cost saving that you'll achieve. So we know that turnover and retention and really attracting talent is really closely linked with retention. So how do we keep the best talent we have and how do we build that for tomorrow? So as an example, organisations the size of 30,000 employees can actually lose £52 million a year just simply by not looking at intelligence and data.
Wow.
to leverage that reskilling and retraining and actually just retention structures. So for example, that's loss of productivity. It's managers spending 17% of their time to try and upskill or keep employees who are not engaged. It's absenteeism, it's sickness, it's everything from simply just not turning up to actually just not being present and enjoying the work, which decreases productivity. So intelligence enables us to find not just people for the jobs today, but also those who are the best fit for the culture of the organisation, those who have drivers that match the values of the company and then can stay there a long time, and perhaps also the top quality talent that you need to achieve your goal for now, and how does that strategically fit into your plan for production or for business development. Those are the kind of measures that intelligence can provide us. In a more tangible sense, intelligence certainly has an impact on time to hire as well, quality of hire. So by enabling overview of the talent pool and the market, which is some of the most basic stats we can look at initially, supply and demand statistics, you can actually leverage difficulty of the market and understand how long it will take you to fill a role, create kind of gold tier, bronze tier, silver tier candidates that then recruiters and hiring managers can easily talk about and have a true narrative of the marketplace. So you're really going in led by the data rather than the feelings. So previously it would be, this is a good match for my team, I feel like this is the individual that I want. However, now it's led by data. This individual has X and Y skill, they're culturally matching on this aspect, and also they're attracted to our employer brand, they're enjoying these benefits, etc., etc. So we can really start to match at the individual and scalable level too.
It's fascinating, and when you put the pound sign on things of the impact that it can have, it's something that really can't be ignored for organisations.
Exactly that. And we also have, models that enable us to predict the cost of talent, the total cost of talent. So not just simply the cost of the hire, but also the cost of losing talent, the cost of the wait in rehiring, when others actually have to pick up the workload for those who are being, waited to join the organisation, that costs the business too. And often people will have to work overtime and those kind of variables that then lead them to be demotivated. So it's all intrinsically linked. And the only way to fully get to grips with all of that data is through an intelligence-led approach.
Okay, so Anna, if I'm an organisation, I'm part of an organisation that's looking to, I'm listening to this and really considering, actually, there's real great benefit in this, and I can see how it's going to benefit my organisation. What does that journey look like? What are the steps that they should be looking at doing?
So the first step will be ensuring that the reporting's good. Are you reporting on the right metrics? Are you looking at your exit interview data? Are you measuring when people leave, and are you measuring why they leave? And are you looking at what your competitors are offering? So the reporting side is really useful. Even just simply reporting on how many roles you have in a year and those kind of metrics. Surprisingly, some organisations are not actually very far in that journey. So that's an area that is real focus as well. So just ensuring that the reporting's accurate, clean, and also regularly accessible. So not just sort of a spreadsheet created once a year that's tucked away and then nobody looks at it again. So reporting is really important. The next logical step is to go to information. So these are your sort of third-party resources, reliable sources that will give you a picture of some aspect of the market. So you can always look at the labour force data from ONS. You can look at the Manpower Employment Outlook survey, which tells you about the scales of UK recruitment and globally too. And you can look at resources like that. So that's information. Some of it's relevant to the business, but you do still have to give it a narrative. You do still have to give it an action. So information comes shortly before insights. So insights is where it starts to get really interesting, and that's where my passion lies. So what? So often we can take information and data to our stakeholders and it's excellent, it lands well, but so what? We really need to provide that picture and narrative of what it means for the individual, the business, and also what to do next. So the insights piece is really interesting because it's all about now. How can we solve a problem for now, or how can we find an innovation for now too? We often go towards that troubleshooting with data, but actually in data, you can also find new and interesting innovation strategies as well. And from insights is the next level, which is the hardest, area to focus on, but really where individual organizations should be focusing now, because it's a great time to act on intelligence. So intelligence is where we end up, and it's absolutely the pinnacle and the goal. Intelligence comes in many different forms. You can look at workforce intelligence, talent intelligence, culture intelligence, competitive intelligence, market intelligence, and no matter which type of intelligence you look at, it needs to be future focused. It needs to be enabling decision making for now and for future to some level. That could be a month away, that could be 10 years away, just depending on the data and resources you have access to. And the really important part, I think, that stands out here is it doesn't matter how much investment you have. You can achieve these levels with different resources and access points. So these free resources should be regularly used, but also partner with organisations who know the journey and really encourage you to kind of look at intelligence as a focus and goal to go towards.
Really useful steps, thank you. And if we get a bit more specific about the benefits here and talk about, one of the key issues we talk about a lot is the skills shortage. Is there any example you can give us on how data insights and the intelligence could help in this area, and what data as organisations should we be looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most important area and the place to start really, especially when looking to hire your people for the future of your organisation, is how many people are there that have the skills you need? Talent pooling, talent mapping, market mapping, whatever you want to call it. It's super important to keep an eye on supply and demand. These are really good indicators and measures for how ready the world is for the strategies that you need, and how adaptable you need to be as an organisation to overcome those challenges. So we know that globally 75% of employers report a talent shortage, and in the UK that's even higher at 80%. And that's a massive amount of employers feeling the same tension. In banking and financial service industry, as an example, that definition of highly skilled has increased by 21% over the last decade. So what can we as an organisation do about it? The metrics that are super important and where most people should start is talent mapping. So talent supply and demand, the cost of talent, what's driving the competitive intelligence. So just have a look on the career companies of the companies that you're noticing your talent leave to or gain from. What benefits are they offering? What's your employer brand kind of positioning in the marketplace? These are measurables that you can easily access with public sources now. And to dive deeper into that, you might need an analyst's help, but actually, you can also start that journey yourself. So alongside that, not just competitor intelligence, but also the trends in the workforce. So have a look at the statistics around the labour force. What's going to happen in 10 years' time to our working force? Who's going to be working? What do they want from an employer? There's so much brilliant research out there looking at motivators for particular groups. And we have, as Manpower Group, a number of papers that actually surface that in real tangible outcomes. The Age of Adaptability report, for one example, has some brilliant stats on what different demographics want moving to the next workforce. And that's a really good access point.
I really like you're actually really simplifying it and bringing it to life that it's achievable at any level in the organisation or an organisation, that it can be really daunting, but actually you're bringing it to life that there's a lot that is there already for us to research and to look at to help us give us greater insights. I wonder if you can talk us through a specific case study that you've experienced, so bringing to life a little bit on how relying on the data insights rather than the emotions and anecdotes has really brought positive results, just to bring the theory to life a bit more.
So the best case study I can always talk about, and I could talk about this all day, is a fantastic partner organisation we work with, a large automotive employer globally and in the UK. And there was some real challenge in the market for hiring, post-pandemic. There's shortages in microchips, semiconductors, there's shortages in engineers, there's a predicted deficit of 16,000 engineers a year, these real daunting stats that we face. How to navigate that is all in the data. So as an example, starting out, if we do a year-on-year comparison, we have an average time to offer, so candidates kind of coming through and being offered a role, 65 days, which is above, an intended goal. It's above the average it was above the average in the UK by about 20 days, and that's across thousands of roles in a year. So you're talking some 200, some 3 days, lots of variation, but the average being 65 days. Implementing a strategy where for every role that we, went to market for had a talent map and a narrative, and we started to enable that gold, silver, bronze kind of candidate mapping way before the recruitment started, enabled the average sort of time to offer to come down to 50 days overall over the 1 year period. And that is obviously for some organisations, maybe with smaller scale recruitment, that's quite a large figure, but large organisations, large amounts of recruitment, that's a massive difference. And it was entirely, contributions of everybody on the teams, but what enabled the conversation to change was the intelligence and the insights. So really every person partnering up with that narrative of the workforce, and not just the workforce, but the market indicators, So as an example, autonomous driving being a skill set that was in extremely high demand still, but especially then. What's going on globally for the market share? How are the relations between China and North America versus Europe? How is that impacting talent pipelines? And how is that impacting production goals for the organisation? So it was going beyond the immediately obvious, this is how many people are in the area, this is the cost of talent. It was also providing the narrative of, and this is why you need to act now, which is such an important message that data can convey. So, often we see the talent acquisition funnel having stages. We have attraction, but before attraction, somebody has an assumption of your brand, right? So even when you're young, you have an assumption of a brand. We hear Manpower Group Talent Solutions and somebody thinks of something. So you have the attraction funnel. You have the engagement aspect. How are they engaging with your brand? How are they, being onboarded and then retained? So throughout that funnel, you have many different processes, and this is where the reporting comes in. Where are you losing people? Is it when you're interviewing them? Is there something going on in the interview process that's giving a bias, or is it giving, an off-putting factor to certain groups? Is there some sort of delay in going back to the interview stage? Those metrics enabled us to put in place, new conversations using the intelligence, and especially the competitor intelligence. I want to emphasize that's such a good way to start. What are your peers doing? You don't want to be the one missing out. You want to be the leader. How do you become the leader? You need to know your market. So that's exactly what happened there. Time to offer being reduced by 15 days over a year period on average for a large employer, and essentially just all driven by intelligence and insights. And off the back of that, there were multiple case studies within that. So one extremely high critical kind of business critical case study is 30 roles needed to be hired in 22 days in an extremely tight labour market for the skill set, all to do with microchips. So you can imagine the competition and the offerings that were flying about. Uncovering the competitor side, what's being offered to candidates, and anticipating the offers that they'd receive enabled us to really give a radar to the hiring community around the importance of making and acting now. So that sense of urgency really brought down the time to offer. But the important thing to note as well is that often metrics look at targeting one factor. So we talked about time to offer, but actually what about the quality of the candidate that comes to your organisation to work for you and you to work for them as well? How does that pairing happen, and how do you make that sort of magic happen at that stage too. So ensuring that the quality of candidate is also measurable and also reported on and given insight for. So not only looking at, talent pooling and understanding how many people have the matching skills to your organisation, but also how many have worked in these industries that focus on these tech innovations that your company might need to focus on in the next 5 years. How many have applied themselves to a vehicle versus an Airbus or versus, an airplane or submarine. How do those skills overlap? Will they bring something new to your team? And actually, are they of a demographic that you've never had in your team before, which actually is important to encourage kind of inclusive action and inclusive hiring in that process. So yeah, quality of hire is also a really important metric.
It's fascinating. And when you bring it to life like that, and I know we talked about, it's a 15-day reduction was the overall piece, but it's the cost implication of that as well, the beneficial cost implication of that on the organisation, plus that ability to look at the quality of the individual and the longevity then of their employment with them and how they fit to the culture of the organisation really makes for such a greater level of hire.
Yeah, exactly. And I think underpinning all of that is risk. So we know that our stakeholders are always risk averse. It's a natural state to be in, but if you know your market and you can sort of anticipate what the candidates might decline or accept or be interested in or not be interested in, then you start to become slightly more alert of your risks and then slowly start to reduce your risk taking too, because you're looking ahead to anticipate what they might react to and how they might engage with your brand and those kind of aspects, which actually encourage more cost reductions too.
Okay, so Anna, we've talked about all of the benefits and some of the great examples that you've shared, but I've got to ask, are there any pitfalls that we need to be aware of when it comes to data, or any mistakes that we can make or big mistakes we can make?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of learnings along the way. It's been definitely a journey and a journey that will continue to evolve. So organisations should not be afraid to take risks and start that journey. I think that's the biggest message I'd say. But pitfalls, I would imagine, were the most common for us was previously looking at data as a one-dimensional factor. So taking a statistic at face value and not investigating what it means or what's behind it. As an example, we can commonly see, layoffs being reported in organisations, but what's behind that statistic? What are the changes in vacancies over the last year? Has that organisation increased their headcount year on year or versus the last 2 years? Is it relative to anything? And quite often, the media coverage that we see reports on these shocking statistics, things are at an all-time high or an all-time low. And if you dive deep into those stats, what do you find? Is it relative to your sector? Is it relative to the skill set you're looking at? We can see quite commonly at the moment that vacancies are decreasing in the UK, right? So overall, the intention to hire is starting to slow, supposedly. But in some sectors and some clients that we work with, that skills gap and that tightness of the labour market and the talent shortage is only, worsening. And that's why strategies to build and bridge and are really important going into tomorrow. So I'd say looking at data as a one-dimensional variable is really, really a pitfall. As an example, we can commonly see people looking at, this is how many software engineers there are in Glasgow. How many know your programming language? How many have applied it to a architecture or a framework that you need them to? How many apply it to hardware? If in the embedded environment, that's the difference. And that sort of niche capability is what's going to make the difference for you as an organisation. Because if you wait 100 days to find the unicorn or the perfect fit, then that's 100 days without that individual, contributing to your business, but also that person having a job, some match there. But if you know the market and you understand how many there are that actually have what you need, then it's easier to create realistic timelines and expectations. It's easier to know what you're going into when you're hiring. So not just one dimension, but really investigate, research and push until there's nothing else to find. My favourite phrase I say to my team often is, uncover every stone. Just make sure that you look into everything, find the original source, do your research and really push and investigate the dimensions. Because what you want to have is not one view of the correct answer. You want many different perspectives and then reasonable conclusions drawn from the overall perspective. It's not common that you'll find one perfect solution, but testing, taking risks and taking first steps will really enable organisations to move forward in their data journey.
That's really useful. So we've got to keep being really curious and very nosy when we're looking at our data.
Exactly that, yes.
Excellent. And finally, before we wrap up, Anna, are there any real tangible steps that a business can take, or what you would say are your top tips in their short-term journey to begin implementing an intelligence-led strategy?
So the first step I'd say is measure everything. Reporting is the first step. So make sure that you have measurables. A common kind of gap that I would spot is organisations having a high attrition problem in different departments and not understanding why. If you implement a usable and useful exit interview process or outflow, or outpost kind of coordinated approach, then you understand a bit more about how people are leaving your organisation and why. So sometimes we see automated surveys or structured interviews or formal interviews. There isn't an appropriate kind of one-size-fits-all approach, but it's about listening to the employees who leave and giving them a safe space to understand why they left. That's just a really common example. HR data is so important and drives decision-making now in many different areas of the business, not even just HR really, because you need people to achieve your goals in production and turnover too. But essentially it's measuring everything. So making sure that your metrics are set up correctly. Understanding what's worked well and what hasn't worked well for other businesses is always useful. There are case studies online. There are great, consultative approaches you can take by working with your partner organisations, and ensuring that you look at the gaps. And actually, the best advice I could say is go towards the gaps, go towards the noise and the challenges, and start looking at little areas you can make incremental changes. I think that's definitely a tip. If there's an area that is really struggling for recruitment, find out why, and then you'll be able to build a better solution for tomorrow. I think in terms of resources and access points as well, it's definitely useful to check constantly, the economic activity rates, the labour force updates, what's going on now, what's going on in the future, understanding the scales of the recruitment market. So the Manpower Employment Outlook survey is really useful for that. You can understand how many businesses intend to hire, how many intend to make redundancies, how many intend to keep their workforce the same across different metrics, whether that's industry verticals, globalization, so different geographical locations, and you can understand which skills are most in demand. That's a really important narrative or lens to have on all of your sort of talent acquisition statistics. I'd say also, accessing your employee reviews, public sources, Glassdoor and Indeed. How often do you look at those employee reviews? If you're a candidate, put yourself in the candidate's shoes. What's the candidate going to see online about your organisation in the news or on your careers site or on employee review sites? And how can you action that to take a step forward and improve that image or improve the gap that you might see or the problem that you might see there?
Fantastic. Some really great tips there, Anna. Some real golden nuggets for people to take away. And that's it for today's episode of the Transform Talent podcast. Thank you to Anna for introducing us to data and insights. I know there's a lot more to unpack in this area in future episodes for sure. To learn more about the topics we've discussed in this episode, you can check out our Ultimate Reskilling Guide in the podcast notes. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in once again, and please make sure you're subscribed to our podcast on your preferred platform so you don't miss an episode. See you next time.